get started then. Just to introduce myself, my name is Tom Riley, and I am the manager for our sales training for our payroll division. So really anything related to resources, tools to help you all develop in the field is my responsibility. So if there are anything that you see or that you need further development for as you go through the process, definitely keep my name handy. I would love to make sure that you receive what you need. And you're going to find that you're probably going to be invited to too many trainings. That's usually the argument. But I don't think you can be invited to too many trainings because, for one, you can't. It's not a one and done scenario. You've got to attend typically multiple trainings of the same subject to really let it sink in, especially with remote training. I know it's difficult to stay focused and keep focused without, getting on your email while you're multitasking. So I just ask that you would give me your undivided attention. I'm going to keep it interactive because I know you all have a lot of good things to share as well from your history in sales and the industry and that sort of thing. Caleb is also on the line. He is, we tag team quite often throughout payroll training, and on this session he's going to be manning the slides for me and helping me navigate, so he's in charge of logistics. Caleb, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, like Tom said, my name is Caleb Holmes. I'm the sales mentor for the South Central region, so Oklahoma, New Mexico, Texas, and Arizona, or as I like to call it, the Wild West. And I'm located here in our Oklahoma City offices with the rest of the sales training team, as well as some other people from our sales operations teams like recruiters and sales analysts and those sorts of things. So I'm running the technical side of things. I'm today, and Tom will be kind of walking us through the details. So,
thanks, Caleb. So thank you, gentlemen. I can tell everyone's on mute, and certainly there'll be time for Q&A at any point. If you see something you want to interrupt, feel free to unmute and ask your questions. We are going to cover the intention of today's training is to give you a background of Heartland's Payroll as a business. What's our history? How did we develop as an organization from a payroll perspective? What is our market, and also just a quick overview of our core capabilities from a payroll perspective. You're going to get a lot more in-depth training on core capabilities during next week's training segment. This particular one is really to help you with building up your appointments for next week, helping you to answer questions, that I know that you'll encounter, like who's Heartland Payroll? They know Paychex, they know ADP. I thought Heartland did credit card processing. Who's Heartland Payroll? We're going to cover those pieces to help you with your story and help you introduce Heartland, because we've actually got a really great story, which is probably why you're here today. It's why I'm here. My background, before Heartland, I was with Paychex for 10 years. I also spent some time with First Data in the credit card industry, and I'm at Heartland because we've got a tremendously new offering for the industry and for the market that can really change the way people are doing payroll, and also working with their sales channel as a real relationship rather than just a transactional type relationship. So that being said, Caleb, if you wouldn't mind jumping to the next slide, I want to talk about who we are as an organization. I am curious. I'm just going to randomly ask. Randy, there's no wrong or right answer to it. I'm just curious. Did you know that we are a Fortune 1000 company before you joined?
Yes, I did.
All right. So I hit the right person on that one. I asked that question a lot during training because Heartland is one of the largest companies that no one's ever heard of. I think it really is. A lot of people don't know that we're. Yeah.
I would say that even though I knew that, I also probably would agree with that comment too. I didn't realize that it was a Fortune 1000 company. So I'm right on both of those.
That's good. That's good. I mean, and that's the thing. It's really, you wouldn't think of it because we're just not, you just don't see our name plastered in all kinds of different places. We're also such a new organization. We've grown rapidly as a company. I mean, we were founded in 1997. So if somebody says to you, A, who's Heartland, or B, I thought Heartland only sold credit cards, it's actually a very relevant response because we're a young organization. We're most likely younger than the organization that you're trying to sell our services to. So to introduce it in that way, that not only are we a newer organization within the past 20 years, but we're using the most current technology. We're up to date on how businesses function today versus how businesses functioned 20 years ago. And there's a real reason why you probably haven't seen our name plastered on, stadiums and billboards and that sort of thing because we're still in growth mode. And the beauty of it is our growth mode has been extremely sharp. We're a Fortune 1000 company. We have close to 4,000 employees. We have 300,000 credit card customers. Now, here's another question. Jerry, how many of take a wild guess of a percentage of how many of those 300,000 credit card clients use our payroll services?
I'm going to say 5%.
Good guess, but not quite. It would actually be around 2%. So you were in the right direction because the reality is we have such a huge pool of happy clients that are using our credit card processing. We're still trying to introduce payroll to a warm group of people that would listen versus cold calling people who don't know Heartland from a credit card perspective or a payroll card perspective. So that's really good news. We've got a strong book of business in that perspective. You all have a great natural referral source within the relationship manager channel that you're going to learn more about as time goes on, and those have been extremely lucrative in cross-referring in the field. It just takes some time and effort to build those relationships, obviously. The payroll services were added in 1999, so that's still fairly young. I would argue we really haven't been selling payroll since 2012. And we're gonna talk about the story and evolution of Heartland Payroll in just a minute. But if somebody says, "Hey, how long have you been doing payroll services?" you can say we've been doing it since 1999. We were publicly traded in 2005, not so long after inception, after we had founded. We have 33,000 plus payroll clients. I know that some of you know the answer to this. Who knows how many clients approximately ADP has?
630,000.
Wow, that's pretty good. I always say over 500,000, so you are definitely more on target than I would be. So 630,000 ADP clients compared to our measly 33,000 payroll clients. That being said, we're the 8th largest payroll provider in the country. So there's a big step between the big boys and where we're growing into. Now, who knows how many Paychex has?
I thought it was around 550.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I understand it too. I would say ADP and Paychex individually have over 500,000 clients, and the good news for us is that is a pool of people that you all know jump back and forth year after year, looking for new alternatives, but typically can't find one that has the right technology or current enough to handle the needs. And we're primed for that position. So as you all are prospecting, I know I don't really have to advise you on this. You probably know this already, is, go after that pool heavily. I mean, we've got a pool of happy Heartland clients that don't know payroll. We have pools of ADP and Paychex clients that believe in outsourcing and they just need a better alternative, and that's us. So really good news there. So we are, even though we've got 33,000 clients, that growth has really happened in the last 3 years, which we'll go into in just a little bit. Backing-wise, I mean, if you think about our payroll organization and why some people would say, well, I've never heard of payroll, the Heartland Payroll, we're a $50 million division in a $2 billion organization. We have $100+ billion in card transactions funded annually. We're essentially a startup payroll company with the backing of an elephant. I mean, massive financial backing and massive growth mode, and that's really good news. And it's important to explain that to our clients. You know, we're publicly traded. All of our accounting, security, controls, they're transparent. They're audited outside of Heartland. Hey, we're getting a little dialing there. Somebody's dialing on their phone. So the backing around what we're doing as a payroll organization is tremendous. 5th largest card processor in the country, 8th largest payroll provider. We own and process on our own internal platforms. Bob Carr, the guy you see there on your screen, I guarantee you are going to meet him. He is one of the most down-to-earth CEOs I've ever met. Not saying that I've met a ton of them, but I have met other CEOs. And what I always take away from Bob is that who he's talking to is exactly who he's talking to. He's not worried about other people around him. He wants to hear from the sales organization is extremely important to him, which is why our compensation model is built the way it is. His belief is if you bring business to this organization, you should own a piece of that business for the life of the account, whether you're with Heartland or not, which is, obviously extremely rare. He also, his business ethics and the way he runs the business, which really separates us, especially on the card side, but also filters into the payroll side, is his belief in transparency and doing the right thing. His ethics are just top-notch. I would recommend, if you want to get into his head, he wrote a book that was released earlier this year, I think actually in the start of the year. It was called Into the Fires. It's an autobiography. You learn a little bit about, how he grew up, but a lot about how the business was formed, how Heartland was formed, his ethics around it, and how he gives back to organizations and charities, and also his own foundation. So, really good things to know about somebody who's actually running the company at the CEO level, which translates to how we treat our clients as well. Next slide, Mr. Caleb. Thank you, sir. So this is where I want to stop and tell you the story, and it's really important to know our Heartland story so that when people say, well, gee, I knew Heartland back in 2005. I don't think you guys can do what I'm looking for, or I've never heard of Heartland before. Whatever it may be, there's some really important reasons for the story and why you're here today. Number one, as you know, payroll started for Heartland in 1999. Does anyone know, this is like bonus question out the wazoo, does anybody know how we did our payroll between 1999 and 2012?
Did you process somehow through ADP in a way?
Who's that? Who said that?
Scott Lemley.
Scott, that's, in a way, I'm going to say yes, and we'll get back to that. But we actually licensed a system or software to do our payroll that was not ADP between 99 and 2012. Anybody know what that was?
Oh, I forget the name.
Is that who we bought then? No,
it's actually, so anyway, if you've heard of the name PayChoice, we use the the PayChoice software application as our payroll solution. We licensed that service. We ran our payroll using PayChoice, but it wasn't our own our own operated internal platform. We were obviously reselling a service. And it was a very basic core platform. There was nothing fancy about it. It was gross to net payroll, had very few reporting capabilities. There was no HR components. There was really very little integration that could be brought to the table. And between 99 and 2012, we grew very slowly. As a matter of fact, the people that were selling payroll were the relationship managers that you currently are going to be cross-referring and building those relationships with. They were essentially tripping over payroll deals and signing them up. I mean, it wasn't a real strong segment that they were selling on. They were mainly selling card, and then if somebody said, hey, I heard that you guys do payroll, especially in the restaurant industry. Can you help me there? And they'd say, well, yeah, I guess so, but we only do it on a quarter, or we only do it at the end of the year, because they didn't want to deal with all the supporting documentation. It's a pain, especially for relationship managers that don't know payroll at all. So here's another question, bonus, 99 to 2012, any idea how many clients we had at 2012? So over, 12, 13 years. Take a guess.
5,000.
5,000? Little low, but you get the right idea because we grew super slowly.
12,000?
12,000. Yeah, who was that?
Scott.
Scott, nice. Okay, so 12,000, we were at 12,000 employees at 2012. Extremely slow growth. Why most people don't know Heartland, the only time they typically would know Heartland is maybe if they were a restaurant, because a third of our clients were from the restaurant industry. And we actually still are, a lot of our distinctions and a lot of tools and reporting we have strongly built for the restaurant industry. But that being said, over that amount of time, we slowly grew to 12,000 employees. 2012 is when something serious happened, and it's why you all are here and why we're where we're at today. In 2012, Bob Carr and the board of directors, they had a big decision to make, and that decision was, am I going to sell our payroll division, or am I going to build new technology, a new payroll system that we own and operate with much more capabilities? And if we do that, we're going to pour millions into it so that it's something that can actually compete with the big boys in the industry. And as you can imagine, they didn't sell it, otherwise none of us would be here. They did just that. They built a web-based application. It's owned and operated by Heartland. It has human resources capabilities in it. It's integrated with payroll. There's lots of ways that a client can customize those applications, and it really changed the face of what we can deliver to the market. The other thing is it uses current technology. I mean, if you think of 2012 versus where a lot of our competitors have built their systems from, we're using current technology, and it was built around how businesses operate today rather than how businesses operated decades ago. So very new, advanced, and has the ability to grow with new integrations. You're going to see over your life cycle here at Heartland, lots of new developments get put in place. It's a system that can easily handle those things with our developers over time. So you'll see that. You'll see things advance in that capacity. So that was a big deal. That was a big move in Heartland's world, and that happened in the middle of 2012 and launched in the fourth quarter of 2012. Then something happened that really indicated also how serious Heartland is about payroll. On December 31st, 2012, last day of the year, they purchased the company. Any idea who that is? Ovation, exactly. So you might see some branding about Ovation still. We've actually peeled off that name in most areas. We used to be known as Heartland Ovation Payroll. Now that branding has really been starting to change to just Heartland Payroll. But Ovation did some key things for us, and that was a serious acquisition. For one, it doubled our client size. So we went from 12,000 clients to 24,000 clients. And more importantly, we brought new infrastructure into the organization that really focused on operations, key operations people, and also key development areas, IT support, and taking some of the technology that they had in Ovation and infuse it into our Heartland solution. So that was another really important milestone in our history. Between 2013, 2014, there was just growth within the sales channel. The spa position was created and has grown since then. Really, this year we've seen a lot of rapid growth in that position, but from 2013, 2014, that position has grown throughout the organization, and it is designated, was really designed because we needed payroll-focused salespeople that can cross-refer and work with the relationship manager sales channel that primarily focuses on cards. So you've got two segments that can work together, introduce business, and help grow each other's business. So rather than building a base of 300,000 credit card clients, of which only 2% use payroll, we want that to be more like growing hundreds of thousands of clients, and they use us across the board, which, by the way, if they do, the retention on that is around 95%, and that includes businesses that actually go out of business. So you're doing yourself a favor when you bring in your card rep, and your card rep's doing themselves a favor when they bring you in, because all it does is add to the retention, which is so important for you all from a residual standpoint, equity standpoint. It's all really good news. So that position developed over time. This year in February 2015, something happened. We acquired another company. Anybody know what company we acquired February 2015? This one's a harder one, less known, located in Michigan, of all places. Payroll One. Good. Who was that?
Jerry.
Nice. So Payroll One, most of which none of us have heard of. I didn't. I had never heard of them. We purchased them for a really specific strategic reason, and this goes back to Scott's answer earlier about ADP. Does anybody know what Payroll One could do that we needed?
We were able to do our tax implications. We could do it directly.
Yes, exactly. So we had one skeleton in our closet, one that nobody liked. And even though we had our own system that we processed payroll on, we could do the human resources, we could do integrations, we still needed to rely on ADP to handle all of our tax filing with the government. We used their master tax service. It was, a back engine to do that. It was certified to do that. We had to rely on it, and it was a skeleton in our closet. We don't like to use anyone else's system, especially a competitor. And the beauty about the Payroll One acquisition is, yes, it brought on more clients. It brought on 6,000 clients. It also brought some strong additional ops people and development in IT, but it brought what they had designed as a tax engine, which is called TaxMate. TaxMate was their tax engine. So now we don't have any skeletons in our closet. It is all, processed, and not that we had skeletons in our closet. That's probably a bad analogy, but we now, from end to end, from a payroll perspective, could handle a client's needs from start to finish, and that was a really key part of our story and our growth. So, as of now, you're bringing to the market something that's current, something that can handle additional enhancements. They're building more development to it. Couple things to be aware of. When the system was designed, you'll see on that screen, our target market is really for the small to mid-sized business. So where do you want to get the shortest sales cycle, bring the most value, capture the most margin, and the highest retention, it really stands within those clients that have 1 to 100 employees. Our average client size today is about 15. Now, it doesn't mean you can't pursue 200, 300 employee companies, 500 employee companies. That doesn't mean that at all. It just means that when you get to those higher employee counts, you're going to have to be careful of a few limitations that we have, and we're going to get into some of those limitations in a minute. But actually, you're going to learn more about those limitations next week when we dive into some of the deep details. To give you a little snapshot, it has much more to do with when clients need applicant tracking, paperless onboarding, benefits integration, like full integration. When you get into those higher employee counts, oftentimes they're looking for some of those additional enhancements that we just don't have built into the system because it was designed for that small to mid-sized business. So keep that in mind as you're scheduling appointments, just to get the best, so you're not spinning your wheels, I guess is the best way to put it. Any questions on that before we move on? Good. All right. Well, hopefully that gives, I actually hope that gives you all a better perspective of where we came from as an organization and helps you feel a little bit more comfortable in how to explain it, because it is different than a well-branded or, more popular system that has been around for a while. And I think we have a really unique story to share. Caleb, can you jump to the next? Perfect. Okay. So I know that you all were on a call yesterday on phone prospecting and our distinctions and that sort of thing, which are always good reminders, how to position yourself and what makes us unique and how to work with a client to get those appointments. These are, what you see here is a snapshot of 5 distinctions. This is not it's not an end to the means. It's just some of our top distinctions. You're going to find in your area there are things that really stand out more than others. But I wanted to talk about a few of these because they're oftentimes forgotten. For one would be the first one, and this is my absolute favorite. So the distinction of you. And I know many of you are coming from Paychex, many of you are coming from ADP, some from other payroll organizations, and even from a sales perspective, those of you that have a long history in sales, in many cases, salespeople are paid one and done. It's a transactional type relationship. You want to maintain a relationship, but you're really forced to move on, get the next one, and do as little as you can to maintain relationships versus get the next sale. And we're very different in that way. Everything that you do is really built around relationship management. Even though your title is not a relationship manager, that's what you are. And you're not a salesperson. You really are a business consultant, an advisor, a manager of relationships. And the reason for that is that you really have a vested interest in repeat business. You actually relate better to every business you walk into the door than any other payroll rep that's out there. Think of it this way. Every time a client processes their payroll is repeat business for you. You get paid on retention. It's important that your clients know that you care about long-term relationships and that you're actually compensated on repeat business. Just like the retail client wants Johnny to come in and buy a baseball bat in the spring, they want that person to come back in the fall and buy a football. A restaurant owner, as much as they like somebody to come in and have dinner once, they much prefer somebody that comes in and has dinner once, and they value that experience, and they come back again, and they come back again, and they come back again, generating multiple opportunities for billing, for revenue, and a relationship. That's what you all do. Every time they process payroll, they're walking back in your door, and they're doing business with you. Just like a CPA, you refer a CPA and they do a tax return one time, that really doesn't fall into how they do their planning for running their business. When they get a new client for taxes, they look at that person for years because it doesn't do them much good to do it one time. It's all about that repeat business. So again, your referral partners and your prospects, you relate to them better than any payroll rep out there in the industry, and definitely communicate that, share that, the importance of that. The other thing is, I would bet the majority of people on this call either came from Paychex or ADP. And from managing your relationships in those companies, it's very, very difficult. I sometimes do payroll training for our relationship managers. There are some relationship managers that they're in areas that they don't have spas, they don't have people that sell payroll, they can't refer. And in some cases, there are some that are actually very good at doing both, but they want more development. Initially, when we rolled the new system out, one of the things that was extremely valuable to know was that if you walk into a business that uses Paychex or ADP, they're probably on a weekly basis getting hammered by other sales channels within the same organization that they're already doing business with. So I remember, and I know that some of you can relate to this, I remember bringing in a new payroll sale, and the very next day, 5 other sales channels are jumping all over to schedule appointments, to upsell them to workers' comp, to 401k, to health benefits, to human resources. You name it, they're getting hammered for new appointments. You could actually pick up deals just by saying, hey, how often do you get contacted by the same company you're already doing business with? How annoying is that? How would you like to be with an organization where I'm your person, I manage the relationship, anyone that I see fit, that you think it makes sense for me to introduce to you, we'll do that. But in the meantime, you're not going to get unwanted soliciting calls as soon as you sign up with our service. That's something that I handle internally. And that's a breath of fresh air, right? I mean, I know that many of you know what I'm talking about. So just remember how important that first distinction is, and that's why I actually stay on that a little bit longer. The other ones, service and retention. Everything that we do is built around the retention of the client. Our service center is aware of our compensation model that actually goes all the way up through our senior vice presidents of the organization. Everyone is impacted by the retention of a client. So it's important to them, and that's something that's monitored from a retention standpoint. We have to keep a certain level of retention in order for us to operate as an organization. Extremely important. So all of our services revolves around that, and we have a single point of contact model. So one single point of person that handles their account. The system itself, user-friendly, it's customizable. You're going to hear user-friendly time and time again. I always like to use an analogy. The system is new. It was built around new logic, how people do business today. Much like when you go to the store and you buy an iPhone, you don't use a user manual. You just open it up and you start using it. And that's the way our system was designed. They're going to get all the training that they could possibly need, but it was designed so that if they log into their account before they even start their training, they could actually figure out how to use it without even having any type of training. And that really does provide a user-friendly, logical solution to the market. The last two are important. And the second to last, the fact that we don't nickel and dime. I know that many of you have probably seen statements in the past, things where clients are getting hit with charges that they don't even understand what it is that they're paying for. Maybe they randomly show up on a quarterly basis or on a monthly basis. The beauty about what you all are bringing to the table is you can confidently show them your price, and that price is not going to have any additional nickel and diming throughout their lifetime with Heartland. And that falls back to the way Bob Carr has always run the business. He doesn't want surprises for clients. He wants full transparency. He wants to make it easy, no guesswork. And that's a beautiful thing. And you all are, I'm sure, very aware of how many different odds and ends you can see on a payroll statement depending on the company. And then lastly, don't hesitate to talk about this, the 3-year price lock. You're going to bring a price to the table. The purpose of the price lock is so that business owners can stop doing the dance every single year. Oh, my payroll invoice went up. Okay, well, now I'm going to call ADP. Now I'm going to call Paychex and go back and forth because that's the only way I can keep my payroll costs to a reasonable level. And that goes away. We want clients to say, listen, I'm agreeing to your price. I'm not going to have to worry about it. And by the way, in 3 years when that price lock comes up, their account may be evaluated based on the pricing that you had set forth to make sure that, we're actually recuperating an adequate amount based on, any type of rise in cost in the business, in our business. But it doesn't even mean that after 3 years they automatically get a price increase. This is something that's assessed, and it's good news for clients.
Excuse me?
On any of that? Yeah.
Yeah. As far as the price lock is concerned, does it automatically come with every sale, or is it something that you keep in your back pocket and you can offer if you're having a tough time, or how do you position it?
Yeah. The 3-year price lock is automatic. That is something that is part of our service guarantee, and the way that I would position it is that we're going to give you a price, and we're guaranteeing this price because we know that in the industry, everyone else doesn't promise this. On any month, they can raise your prices for any reason. A discount could expire. Cost of business may happen, and that price can change. We don't believe in surprises like that for our clients. We know that they have a business to run. We're going to give them a great price, and they can rely on it, and it's locked in for 3 years. Make sense?
Tom?
Yeah.
This is Randy. Just a couple additional questions. After that 3-year term, is it a renewing 3-year term? And then secondly, can you talk about just what are the, as far as a client, maybe if they were unhappy or just getting out of that, and what are their costs associated with that as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. So one of the things that you're going to, so first of all, after 3 years, at any point, if the client's pricing needs to change, they will, A, be aware of it, which is not typically the norm in the industry, and B, they will be locked in for another 3 years. So it's not something that suddenly they're on this, oh no, here we go, I'm on this annual cycle of increasing. If we have to change pricing, if we need to have that conversation, it will be communicated to the client, and then that will be something that's locked in once again that they don't have to worry about. If it ever becomes an issue after that point, that's something that, again, we don't want to lose a client. The operations person will pull in a payroll rep if it's necessary to have a discussion on what to do in those cases, because we know, operations knows that impacts your book of business. So that's something to be aware of. It's not like you are out of the loop if an issue arises. But you asked the second question to that was actually really key. Does anyone know what the early termination fee is of somebody who leaves our service within 3 years?
I'm going to say there isn't one for us.
I thought it was $3.99 or something like that.
Okay, those are two opposite scenarios. Anybody else? Good guesses. And the $399 was closer. There is an early termination fee, believe it or not. It's a $295 termination fee, early termination fee, if you leave our service within 3 years. Well, that stinks. That's not a good deal. That's not the same as payroll industry. That actually makes it sound like we're locking them in, right? I don't know.
Yeah,
if
but
I like that.
Isn't it beneficial to the sales rep because of the chargebacks?
It is. It's beneficial to you because it kind of builds a little bit of, okay, there are repercussions to leaving the service, but it's actually even better than that. A lot of times what we forget is how we operate as an organization and what the agreement states. And the agreement is we're going to give you this price, and we're going to provide this level of service to your account. And if we fail to meet those agreements, then there is no agreement. So the reality is it's very rare that we charge an early termination fee. That early termination fee is there so that there's actually a conversation built into somebody leaving our service. So think of it this way, and the answer to that is because we actually care. What happens is when an early termination fee is applied, it happens when somebody just disappears. It's like they're with us for 6 months, they cancel the service, they jump onto some other service, and we don't even have any type of idea what happened. And then their account is assessed, and operations has the, they review it, and they can assess whether or not to apply the early termination fee. And it's really based on how much we actually made overall on the cost of doing payroll for that business based on how much we charged on that 3-year price guarantee. But the reality is, if a client leaves our service because we did something wrong, we failed, we miscommunicated up front, we raised our prices when we shouldn't have, all of those things are not an agreement. That's us failing to do our part of the agreement. So the 3-year price lock is all built, and that agreement is all really built around the benefit of the client. And at the end of the day, the only thing we ask is that there's a conversation if they decide to leave our service. Because if we've done something wrong, then there is no agreement. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Absolutely.
What if a company just goes out of business?
Exactly.
No. Good question. No early termination fee. That's a really great question, because there are businesses out there, especially credit card organizations, that build in these crazy agreements and leases. It doesn't matter if that business stays in business or not. They're paying those cancellation fees and leasing fees and whatnot. No, if a business is not in operations anymore, we do not charge that. Again, every single one is assessed based on why they actually left. And the only time that I've had numerous conversations with operations on this, the only time that it's applied is when it's somebody that's been on the service for a short amount of time, there's no indicator why they left, there's no connection with the client at all, and maybe we need to recoup some money because we're actually in the red for servicing that account. It's more of a very small buffer of protection from an operational standpoint. That's about it.
Okay.
So I always, just always communicate that as good news, because it really is. Our agreement is for them. We agree to do the service that they expect, to do the service that you as spas communicated to them, to do it at a level that they expect and at a price that they expect. And if none of that takes place, there is no agreement.
Is the early termination only if you've given somebody the 3-year price lock? Like, if we run into somebody that's just absolutely will not sign up, and I doubt this is really going to happen, but absolutely will not sign up because of the termination fee, can you sign them up without a 3-year price lock and not do the termination fee?
You can do a when you'll see an atlas in the analysis section, and we're going to have training on atlas. I know that you're probably working with your PDMs as well in looking at atlas, but in the analysis section when you're building a proposal, you can select month to month. Basically, it comes out as a year agreement, which means month to month. It means that we're keeping our pricing on an annual basis rather than a 3-year price lock. But you get compensated differently. I don't know if you're aware of that. When you fall outside of the way that we do 3-year price lock, your compensation changes. I believe, I'll have to confirm this, but I believe it goes to a higher residual, like a 30% residual, and you forfeit the signing bonus. But that's something that you can always clarify when it comes up with your payroll DM. But I try to avoid that because there's no downside to the 3-year price lock for somebody.
Tom, quick question. What if they've negotiated, we have the price lock in, and then they start going through tough times? Can they revisit the pricing within that 3-year?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's the other thing. And that's why we want to have a conversation. So, again, if for some reason, like they have tough times, maybe they need to downscale some of the services, maybe they need to reevaluate the pricing that's currently being offered, that's when you get involved. You can either you can decide with the client, because it is your part of your book of business. You can look at it as a business perspective. Hey, they're being approached by ADP, or they're having a difficult time with bills, or whatever it may be. Is there anything we can do? You can reevaluate that price and have them sign a new agreement, and then it goes into a 3-year price lock for the new agreement, and that just impacts what your new residuals would be on that. Oftentimes operations can take care of that for you, but when it comes to actually re-evaluating pricing, they want you involved because it's impacting your book of business. Good question.
All right. Yeah, thank you.
Caleb, next slide. Something else to be aware of. There was there was some market research done by an organization called Ericsson, and they came up with some really nice results. They did an independent survey between us, bundled most outsourced competitors, Paychex, ADP, as well as QuickBooks into it, and we received a really high score. They call it a net promoter score of 65, versus, as you can see, our closest competition was actually in-house payroll using QuickBooks, and then getting into our other competitors. And the market research was based around customer satisfaction. Would you, as a current user of Heartland, would you recommend to another business owner to use the services? And in turn, if you're with ADP, would you recommend using the services to another business owner rather than using someone else? You can see our score was pretty impressive there. So from a customer satisfaction standpoint, we rate extremely high. Our retention is very high in the industry. From my understanding, it's the highest in the industry, but I know that that's always dependent on the data that our competitors, we know of our competitors. The beauty of it is when you start bundling in products, you get into something that no competitor can touch. So if you've got, clients that are using both payroll and our card processing, you get into the mid-90s. If they're using payroll and our HR services, you get into the low 90s for retention. If they're using card as well, then you get into even higher numbers. So our retention rate and our customer satisfaction is high. And that's good news for you guys because, again, it's not about one and done. It's about retaining that business for the long haul. Caleb, next slide. This is just a quick snapshot, and you'll see pieces, marketing pieces and whatnot of just, again, re-emphasizing the base of business that we have on the card side and how much opportunity there is to market to warm clients. Clients that know Heartland probably have never heard the payroll story before. So keep that in mind as you're working through Atlas and prospecting outside of it. Next slide. So Heartland is a payroll company. Kind of a opening slide to taking the stress out of payroll. Caleb, if you go to the next one, this is going to list, these are just a few snapshots, and this is something that's in one of our marketing pieces. We're going to do a much deeper dive on the payroll services capabilities next week during a training, but this is just to highlight a few things. From a payroll perspective, we're going to be covering all the tax-related needs, filings, deposits, taking on all the liability for the accuracy and timeliness. Clients have options, phone, online, fax, a lot of integrations with time clocks and POS systems, direct deposit, getting their checks live. They can actually print checks on site if they want to. There's no additional cost to that. They just need a laser printer and check stock. Lots of different reporting capabilities. It's actually almost limitless on the reporting capabilities. If we have the payroll data and we don't have a standard report for it, we can help the client either build the payroll report in our custom report writer, or we can build it for them, and it'll be included in their regular payroll package. So lots of capabilities within the payroll system itself. Next slide, Caleb. Just a quick picture of, when somebody logs in, what they see. This is kind of the opening page. And they'll see right up front, you can see who their single point of contact is. In this case, the example is Angela. And they'll have a phone number as well as an email address so they can reach them directly. And the system itself, like I was talking about in terms of logic, it's easy to find what you're looking to do based on the tabs on the left-hand side of the screen. So simple to use. If you haven't been on a Tuesday, Thursday demo, every Tuesday and Thursday at 2 o'clock, there's a standing demo to just show the service, give an overview of the system capabilities. Please jump on that. If you have any questions on how to do that, either email me or email your sales mentor. We can get you the login credentials. It's a great way to keep refreshed and see different ways that people are presenting off the system. And ultimately, at the end of next week, you guys are going to start your training to get your own demo account. So you'll be able to do it yourself and walk a client through it. Next slide, Caleb. And then this is just a quick snapshot of a payroll entry grid. It's part of the payroll processing section. Client can go through. That grid is built on specifically what the client is tracking from a payroll perspective, and it's custom built on what they need to see in it. And if they integrate with a time and attendance system, it's actually built so that anything from that time clock is just going to feed right into these grids, and then they can double check those data items and then go ahead and process the payroll. Next slide, Caleb. And that's it. So what questions do you guys have before we sign off?
Tom, I have a quick one.
Yeah.
In terms of the CPA relationship, CPAs that heavily do payrolls, even though they could probably spend their time doing much better things, but that's their mainstay, so it's in-house for them. They're doing the payrolls. Do we have anything in place for an acquisition?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have a few different ways that we can work with CPAs that do payroll for a profit, and either they want there's an acquisition opportunity where they literally want to get out of the business. That is actually something. The acquisition opportunity is still in development. They're handled on a case-by-case scenario and how you would get compensated and how you would get margin credit for it. So we have a business development team that handles, there's a director for each region that assesses those opportunities from an acquisition standpoint, and you and your payroll DM could discuss that with them, and they can give you an idea of what they could do based on that agreement. There's nothing formalized there, so each one is individually assessed. What's even better is the CPA that says, hey, I want to keep doing payroll, but I want you to be my engine. I want to use your system. I want you to bill us. I want to be the facing service center for my clients, and I'm going to upcharge the service, or maybe I'm not going to upcharge the service. Maybe I'm going to charge the same thing, but maybe Heartland would do a revenue share with me based on the business that I bring on board, and we would do that. We do margin shares. We can do some specific white labeling. Those opportunities, again, those are all individually assessed, but those are much more common that you're going to find. So when you run into those opportunities of sources that can do that, let your payroll DM know about it, and then if they have any questions, they'll typically reach out to me, but they probably know the business development person to connect with and start working through that. It'll require some investigation, some needs analysis to get all the facts, and we have some documents that can be filled out with the opportunity to assess the opportunity itself, and then there's some formalized agreements that they can bring to the table for those people. So, yeah, definitely. Lots of options there.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, you got it.
This is Tony Walker. I wanted to know if you had anything in the works as far as mobile apps, for us, for the sales rep. And I did see that you had we have mobile apps for the credit card processing, but like as far as the payroll and everything like that, because everybody's going mobile now. Yeah,
Tony, that's a good question. So, like I said earlier, they're always looking to enhance and make it a better service offering, especially based on how people want to do payroll or what they want to integrate with. One of the things that the developers are working on right now, it's being tested, and it will be released within I think it's the first quarter of next year, is an optimized version of our payroll system where there's going to be some new capabilities built in. One of those will be an optimized version of the system to be used on iPads and on iPhones and on Droids, so that they can use those mobile devices rather than having to do it on a computer or laptop. They're still working out the details on if it's going to be supported by an actual app or if it's an optimized web version that can be saved as an app on one of those devices. But either way, it would work the same way. It's just the internal back office of how it would be supported. That's all. So, good question.
Do you think along those lines? Do you think they would have push notifications as well, or?
I don't know yet. It's too early to tell. I mean, I think that all of those things are being considered for sure.
And what about as far as the SPAs? Like, do we have like a mobile app? Because if you're on the road and everything like that, you may want to, do some things quick on the phone as opposed to, pulling out an iPad or. Well, I guess the iPad is good, but still, even if we had the app for the iPad as well,
Yeah. So from a demo perspective, when you get your demo account, the demo account is exactly the same thing as a user account. It just, it's just fake fake information. So it will only do. There are some limitations, and we don't even recommend a client to use an iPad to do their payroll because there are a few things that they would be limited on. So as of now, when you're actually going to be demoing the system, it's best to what a lot of spas do, which I think is smart, is they actually use the client's computer, because if they open up, if they say, drive, you tell them to drive, here's my login information, let's go through this together on your computer, they're bought into it that much more, rather than you trying to share a screen and turn your computer or turn your iPad. It's just a much better way to do the demo. But you'll learn more about that when we get into the demo training. Any other questions? I know we're at the top of the hour and you guys probably have other appointments, but if there's anything else before we sign off? All right, well, tomorrow I am going to be, I don't know if I'm going to be leading it or not, but you're going to be getting an overview of the HR capabilities. So thank you for attending today. Tomorrow is going to be completely focused on the HR capabilities of the system and the distinctions there, and we'll continue on. So good luck for the rest of the day today, guys, and thanks for joining today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too.
Tom, sorry. You there, Tom?
Yes.